Well, progress has been made in St. Louis amid protests, but as you've heard from our guests, there is still work to do. We are joined now by local journalists to get an update on stories they are covering amid the call for change. Aisha Sultan, home and family editor with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, what have you learned about families talking about racism?
I think it depends on what families in what areas you're referring to. So, while there are families, like we heard in the previous segment, that are having difficult conversations, there are also plenty of families in our region who don't believe that racism is a problem or that it's a significant problem if it is a problem. So, this is my question for them. I've written about a study that was really shocking to me when I read it in the New York Times. It's the largest study done on race and class in America, a longitudinal study that researchers at Stanford, Harvard, and the Census Bureau did, where they looked at outcomes of boys growing up in America, and they controlled for household incomes, the family structure, so whether you were in a married or divorced or single household, education level, and accumulated wealth. And they followed those boys and their economic mobility, like where their families started out and where those boys ended up decades later. And that study found that in 99% of America, there is a gap between Black boys and white boys that cannot be explained by the educational status of their parents, the wealth they grew up in, the income that their parents had. There is that difference. And so even boys, Black boys at top income brackets, like they grow up in the wealthiest families, they are more likely to become poor in America than stay wealthy as adults as compared to white boys. So if it's not all these other things that are the excuses I usually hear from readers who take issue anytime I write about racism, oh, it's because of their families, oh, they don't value education, which frankly are racist beliefs. If you think that an entire culture or group of people somehow have a different set of values than what you would want for your children. How do you explain that? I mean, that's my question for readers. And then how do you explain the fact that in St. Louis, those numbers are worse than in much of the rest of the country? The disparity between how Black boys raised in St. Louis at different income levels, their outcomes are worse than 70% of the rest of the country. So that's my question for people watching tonight is, are we going to ask those questions of why? What's happening? What's happening in our schools? What's happening in our interactions with the police? What's happening in just day-to-day interactions? What's happening with jobs? I mean, those are the questions I have as a journalist.
All right, thank you. Fox 2 investigator Elia Davis, what have you learned on the legislative front?
Well, one of the things I learned is that the George Floyd death made it possible for many people to start, many legislators, to think about police reform and actually try to do something to tackle the issue. People had never thought about it before. People who thought that if they said the words police reform, they would look anti-police, like they were anti-police. You look at the bill that was passed by Lewis Reed, the Board of Aldermen president, essentially had this bill passed. It dealt with chokeholds and strangleholds, and it dealt with no-knock warrants. It dealt with racial bias and trying to educate officers to identify people who might have the racial biases. And so it dealt with a lot of those issues, and it passed handily. Matter of fact, it passed unanimously by the Board of Aldermen. Not only did aldermen approve it, but it also had the approval of the St. Louis Police Officers Association and the Ethical Police Society that represents minority police officers, and it was signed into law by the mayor. And this was a direct result of the George Floyd death. People, basically, legislators said, we got to do something, essentially. Before that, there was not even any thought given to police reform. And as I said, a number of people that really do actively support police essentially got on board. And it made it possible for them to deal with that issue and not be seen as somebody who was against officers. That was just on a local level. On a national level, that was an even bigger effort. I'm going to go to that quickly. That was a Floyd Justice in Policing Act, where they were dealing with redefining when should force be used, and qualified immunity, when you can sue an officer, to make that easy. Issues like that, there were efforts by Democrats and Republicans to deal with this, but the House bill was much tougher. It got to the Senate, it died. They could not get the support of the Senate, so ultimately the effort died. But the key thing is that there was support on all quarters that the issue needed to be addressed. And there was a lot of talk about it. The measure didn't get passed in Washington. It did locally, but certainly it got a lot of people thinking about it. And maybe perhaps down the road, it's not an issue that's going to go away. And people are going to continue to think about it. Ultimately, I believe we're going to get some action on Capitol Hill.
All right, Elliot, thanks. Linda Lockhart, editing consultant, you are tracking education. What have you discovered?
Well, one of the things that still troubles me, as I think Aisha mentioned, is this academic achievement gap that just keeps getting bigger, wider, and even more so now because of the situation with the pandemic of children not, being able to go to school. And we know that children need to be in school. Everybody wants the kids to be in school right now, but unfortunately the situation is not safe for them and for the teachers, for the families. And so this discrepancy, disparities of what schools have, what equipment, what kids have computers available, have Wi-Fi access, those kind of things. I'm very troubled that children are not going to get the education that all of the kids need, but certainly children of color and children of extra needs. That's one of the things, special needs kids who the special school district is not being able to reach kids right now. It's just very troubling that, we're sitting in this situation that we don't know the end to. We want to get our kids back. We want people to be safe. But for the time being, we've got to try and figure out ways to be sure that all the kids are getting the help they need. For the families that are working, the parents who don't have somebody to watch the kids and be with the kids, that's where my heart is. What's going to happen to those kids who are left home alone, young children who don't have somebody to help them with their Zoom class. I helped my 7-year-old granddaughter and my 3-year-old grandson, who's now 4, with Zoom school. And every kid doesn't have, extra parents and grandparents and assistant teachers who can help them do that. So that's where I'm figuring we have a lot of problems ahead.
All right, thanks. Matt Whitener, writer with yardbarker.com. I know you're following developments in sports, a lot of changes there. Let's start with the Cardinals. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Shirley. The thing that's happened with Major League Baseball, the Cardinals in whole, is that we've really seen things come to a head in a way that we've never seen happen in baseball in some time. I think it's kind of ironic that this happened to be the 100-year anniversary of the Negro Leagues. And now we're back seeing at a point where we have Black Lives Matter patches on baseball uniforms. And that's just something that, I just didn't foresee coming. I was very interested to see how baseball would react in the light of what other sports are doing, namely the NFL and the NBA, and how they were leading this. Because in some regards, baseball's become a little bit of an absentee parent when it comes to the process of leading that charge for African Americans in the sporting world. You get a lot of credit that goes back to the time of Jackie Robinson and whatnot. We celebrate that every year. But now the population of African Americans in the sport is lower than it's been since Jackie Robinson's days in the game. So for baseball to come out and to have things like Black Lives Matter on the uniform patches and on the mound during the game, it's been powerful. And I think St. Louis has really been host to one of the more powerful voices in that, which has been Jack Flaherty, who has been a leader for those young baseball players and has stepped up and said some of the important things that need to be said on behalf of the African-American community. And it's important to hear that in a sport like baseball, because in a lot of regards, that can be the only place that some people interact with African-Americans is going to be while they're watching a sporting event. But not to know that the person inside of that uniform and what they really stand for, that's something that has been lacking. And I don't think that the contemporary athletes today, especially the ones I've spoken to, are settling for that. And it's led to some voices that haven't spoke out before to speak in some ways that we wouldn't expect to hear from them. But I'm really encouraged by what I think that means going forward for younger athletes who are going to follow the footsteps of the ones they see right now. And that role modeling through sports could potentially lead for this to be a long-term change, even if it still is an incremental one.
Yeah, and then what about the changes in the NFL with the protest that started with Colin Kaepernick?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that really started off as something that we saw, really get spun, I think, in some ways that you didn't, that it wasn't true to what was happening. Colin got put in a place of, in some regards, having to be a person that was leading an insurgency that he didn't even set out to do on the level that he did. But, you showed the video, you see people that go to using their mediums in ways they never have before. St. Louis is Ezekiel Elliott of the Dallas Cowboys, the NFL MVP in Kansas City, Pat Mahomes. I just think athletes aren't waiting anymore for their voices to be heard. They're using their social media outlets. They're using their uniforms. They're putting pressure on owners to do things like we've never seen before. And that's really taken the power back in ways that has never been, perceived before. But again, it goes back to the idea of role modeling and leading. And hopefully, as we see those athletes take that lead, it inspires younger kids that'll do that. We see it starting to trickle into college sports. I think we would see it in whatever version of high school we get. And I think that sets us up for the steps for sports to really be a platform that can lead to some substantial change.
Matt, thank you. Steve Kors, senior writer with the Madison St. Clair Record. We've seen a lot of coverage lately. What do you think is going to take to sustain it?
Original journalism. People have to be out finding all the examples of discrimination. My editor and I have pulled those up one by one, year after year, and we've been doing more in the last 2 months. There are stories out there that are told a million times. Try to write the story that has not been written. I'll tell you real quickly, if you fight injustice in St. Clair County, you will make a lot of Black friends. They're on the short end. 10,000 of them, truly, literally, 10,000 Black people got cheated out of proper settlements of their pollution claims by Monsanto. The court approved it. Also, we covered a police killing 3 years ago, which should have had people out in the streets. It did not. When you shout the names of the unjustly dead, shout Jason Stringer. We came to the rescue of the only Black circuit judge in St. Clair County when an underground movement was started to get her off the bench. And she survived retention. Maybe she would have without us, but I'm proud of it. We're standing solidly behind Dr. Ed Hightower right now while he's involved in trying to repair a mess that Alton made. He's their most famous person. He's a regional hero in education, and he's a global hero as a basketball referee, and they turned on him. Now, I'm going to give positive news at the end to show what we can do. 2 months ago, a very young lawyer
Steve, I don't mean to cut you off, but I got to cut you off. I got to get to Carol Daniel.
Clean sewers, that's all.
Right. Carol Daniel, KMOX radio news anchor and president of the local chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists. What are you learning in terms of policy in newsrooms?
Well, what I'm learning is that there's still a need for policy to change in newsrooms. That newsrooms need to look in the mirror and ensure that they are not only diverse, but what we have found here locally, and there are stories breaking as we speak in the St. Louis area, is that even when newsrooms are diverse, that does not necessarily mean that management is doing what it should to protect its very reporters and storytellers. The issues of sexism and racism in newsrooms, sadly, is alive and well. And we have to look in the mirror, not only for how we are treating one another, but how we are treating our viewers, our readers, and our listeners. There is a level of mistrust from the public to us, and there is a level of mistrust within many newsrooms in the country. And the Greater St. Louis Association of Black Journalists is trying to encourage young people to come into this industry. At the same time, we are trying to say to those who are in the industry that we are here for you and that we will stand with you as you face discrimination in your newsroom. We're reporting on racism across the country as journalists, and we are facing it, sadly, in our newsrooms, Shirley.
Does it help to have people of color in decision-making positions?
Well, it clearly does. It clearly does. That is not a silver bullet, just as having Black police officers isn't a silver bullet. It has been said of that particular industry that a corrupt system corrupts. And so just having diversity in your newsroom isn't going to absolve all of the past harms that may have been caused. We have to be intentional with each other. We have to care more about one another. We have to take off some blinders, Shirley, that we have been wearing for far too long. These issues are real, and people's lives and livelihoods and sense of themselves has been harmed by the horrible history that we have as a nation. But I'm with the rest of the panel that there certainly is hope, because we know what we want to do in our careers. Our desire as journalists is to make sense of it all, to explain to our viewers that we truly do care about, this is what is happening, this is why, and here is context for you. And we have to forge ahead in that intention to give our readers and our viewers and our listeners a sense of it all. They may not want to hear what we have understood when we interview the various experts. They may not want to hear it, but our intention cannot be moved from what we feel our role is as journalists. We have a charge. Most of us
and
feel
I
we're
think you're
called to do
absolutely
what we
right.
do.
And I want to thank all of our guests and thank you for joining us tonight for this Fox 2 News special report. St. Louis taking a stand against racism. And Fox 2 News at 9 is up next.